I'm very pleased to join in with this meeting. So appropriate. Chris died far too young for the modern world, and yet he had already achieved a great deal. And I'm very pleased that we're having this meeting to remember some of his many achievements. Actually, my memories start with Chris as a graduate student in Cambridge, when he was initially working for an MA in Cambridge, along with Udi Gachaga and from Kenya. Chris had come from Bristol. They were both good, but at the end of the year, when I'd been supervising them, they both said they wanted to carry on and do a PhD. There was no doubt of Chris, and I encouraged that. With Udi Gachaga, I tactfully in a separate meeting said I didn't think a PhD was for him. So slightly sad, he went back to Kenya and married Kenyatta's daughter. So he remained a good friend. Chris carried on doing his MA, and he chose manpower planning, which was the topic that I'd already been working in. So we kept in close touch. Chris did a study of 40 manpower plans in different countries in Africa. And Chris emerged with what to me was a surprise, but shows Chris's insights, that by the 1980s, manpower planning to identify what African countries needed in secondary and higher education was no longer this main issue. There'd been such expansion of education and of university education. The real issue was to set some limits on how many resources should be going into higher education, even secondary education, to ensure equality by expansion of primary education. That to me was a surprise. It fits very well with Chris's overall work. I think that showed his insight. And Chris, of course, then came to IDS, where he was a fellow and an honorary fellow afterwards. Dear Chris, thank you for all you achieved and for all you showed us. But also thank you for being such a lovely, warm, friendly colleague, lovely person. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to reflect on this very important work which showcases what some of Chris's work and his influence in this field. I think these books reminds us of what has been achieved since Chris and others mapped out the challenges of achieving education for all since the start of the EFA movement from Jomtien to Dakar to today. Probably it's safe to say that Chris's work created the agenda for significant research on education in Southern context, as governments embraced EFA and introduced policies to make basic primary education free. I think very quickly we have also learned from this book and from Chris's work that free education for the poor does not necessarily translate into equitable participation in schooling. The effort to put this on the global international policy agenda, supported by robust evidence, I would say was spearheaded by research that Chris and his colleagues, many of whom contributed to this book, carried out. And throughout this period, a defining issue has been inequality, an issue which this book addresses very well. Why is it that despite the best efforts by governments in the global south, large sections of their society are still unable to benefit from basic education? We have learned that some things are easier to fix than others. This comes through the book. Maybe it's easier to introduce free education policies, for example, but much more difficult to address the demand side challenges. I think this book does a brilliant job in helping us to understand why inequality of opportunity and poverty remains, if you like, the last frontier to conquer if education is to become a vehicle for transforming the lives of poor people in the global south. And it raises several very important questions. I'll just highlight a couple. Why is it that despite billions of dollars spent on improving access to quality education in Sub-Saharan Africa, for example, the intergenerational benefits of the movement to provide education for all has not been realized by millions of poor people? Why have poor girls not made as much progress as poor boys? Why is it that some poor families simply do not buy the free education agenda or what the political elite tell them about what education can do to transform their lives? Why have schools become sites for reproducing social and economic inequality? Why are teachers implicated in the reproduction of education and inequality? Now, if you are interested in any of these answers to any of these questions, then this book will provide you with insights that, in my view, cannot be found in a single volume of work on this subject. Now, Chris may not have made this his life goal to answer all of these questions and many others, but by leading and working with many of those who have contributed to this book, he has managed to advance our understanding of the challenges and what can be done through education to address inequalities in Southern contexts. On this, no greater honor could be done the man than assembling this robust analysis of education and reform of social inequalities in the global south. A strong admiration for Chris's work is the way in which he encouraged work with Southern researchers and to illuminate these issues. And for me, this stands out particularly strongly in this volume, and to develop new insights into these challenges. Chris truly respected and valued contributions from Global South researchers, not simply as people who were hired to do research, to produce data, but actually as co-producers of knowledge. And this comes out very powerfully in this book. To me, this is a testimony of his way of working to understand education challenges in the Global South. Equitable partnership. And of course, we are talking about a book that examines and explores inequalities. Then the contributions must also reflect scholarship generated through strong partnerships with researchers in the Global South. And Chris really stands tall when it comes to this kind of partnership and collaboration. Finally, let me say that this book does a brilliant job by pulling together Chris's significant contributions to education and development in the Global South and showing links to each of the contributing chapters. I commend the editors of this volume for doing this, as it gives the reader an insight into the significance of his work from topics right across the range. And I think this is significant because in many books that celebrate a person's work, you don't tend to get the thread that pulls it together. The editors have done a brilliant job in not only assembling this body of excellent work, but also showing how it's linked with Chris's contribution to the field. This is brilliant work, and I think they've done it. They've succeeded in achieving this in this volume. Let me end by commending the editors of this volume and the contributors who have done a remarkable job in producing a book which says so much about the educational challenges in the Global South, but also what can be done to make things better. In that regard, Chris's work has been the glue that has pulled all this brilliant work together. This is a beautifully written book and well-edited book, and a fitting tribute or acknowledgement of Chris's work in global in education for all. I would recommend it for anyone who is interested in this subject. And I want to thank all the contributors and editors for this work. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share my thoughts on this contribution. Thank you.